Beloved child of God, there's a reason you felt different for so long. Not better than anyone, not above anyone, just different. You've tried to explain it, but words fail you. Because it's not just your personality. It's not just your preferences. It's not just that you think too deeply or feel too much. It's something deeper, something spiritual. And for years, you may have wondered, why am I the one who feels everything so intensely? Why am I the one who can't ignore what everyone else pretends not to see? Why am I the one who keeps trying to change, heal, grow, forgive, while the rest stay the same? Beloved child of God, what if your sensitivity isn't a weakness, but a signal? What if that emotional depth you carry, the way you can't just laugh off pain, the way you can't keep living in the same patterns, the way you can't pretend that dysfunction is normal? What if it's proof that God placed something holy inside you? Because God has a history of choosing one person in a family line, one person who becomes a turning point, one person who becomes the interruption, one person who becomes the shift. And often, that chosen one doesn't come from a perfect home. They come from the very environment that needs transformation. That's why the calling can feel confusing. Because you didn't grow up surrounded by constant understanding. You didn't always have emotional safety. You may not have had consistent encouragement. You may have had to become strong before you were ever held. And yet, even through that, something in you refused to die. Something in you kept reaching for God. Something in you kept hoping, even when hope embarrassed you. Something in you kept believing there had to be more than survival, more than repeating the same pain, more than carrying the same family weight. And listen closely, beloved child of God, because this is going to explain parts of your life you couldn't put into words. The reason you feel like you don't fully fit is because you weren't created to blend in. You were created to break something. Not people, not relationships, but spiritual cycles, generational patterns, emotional chains, the unspoken rules that have controlled your family for years, the silent agreements everyone made with pain, the "this is just how we are" mindset, the denial, the pride, the fear, the emotional shutdown, the addiction to dysfunction, the way love got distorted, the way trauma got normalized. Beloved child of God, God did not choose you because you are too much. God chose you because you are willing to feel what others avoid. God chose you because you are willing to face what others deny. God chose you because you are willing to heal, even when healing costs you your comfort. And yes, being that person can feel lonely. Because when you start breaking cycles, the people who benefit from those cycles often don't celebrate you. They question you. They label you. They misunderstand you. They may even try to pull you back into who you used to be. But God is not confused about you. He knows exactly why you're the way you are. And as this message unfolds, you're going to recognize yourself in it like a mirror. And you're going to realize something that will strengthen you. You weren't rejected. You were selected. And in next chapter, I'm going to show you why God almost always begins family transformation the same way, with one. Chapter 1. God often starts with one. Beloved child of God, the enemy tries to convince you that being the only one means something is wrong with you. But heaven calls you the only one because something is right with you. God has always started generational change by touching one life first. One heart, one mind, one willing soul. Think about Abraham. God called him out of everything familiar, out of the normal patterns, out of the generational atmosphere he was born into, and said, "I'm going to make you the beginning of something new." Not because Abraham's family already understood God perfectly, but because God wanted to create a new legacy through Abraham's obedience. And then Joseph. Joseph didn't come from a peaceful family. Joseph came from jealousy, betrayal, and emotional chaos. Yet God chose Joseph to carry wisdom, resilience, and favor that would eventually preserve the very family that wounded him. Beloved child of God, that is one of the most painful revelations of being chosen. Sometimes the people you're called to help are the same people who didn't know how to protect you. But God is not using you to be abused. He's using you to be a bridge, a spiritual bridge, an emotional bridge, a bridge between what was and what can be. And then Esther. Esther was positioned in a place she didn't ask for, in a season she didn't plan, carrying a responsibility she didn't fully understand, until the moment arrived where her yes became the deliverance of an entire people. This is why your life has carried unusual pressure. You've felt a weight others don't seem to feel. You've felt a responsibility you didn't sign up for. You've asked, why am I the one thinking about healing? Why am I the one praying? Why am I the one trying to do better? Beloved child of God, you are not imagining this. Your spirit recognizes the assignment, even when your environment doesn't. And here's what you need to know. When God calls one person in a family, the calling often begins quietly, not with applause, not with everyone agreeing, but with conviction, a holy dissatisfaction, a deep inner knowing that says, this cannot continue. And maybe that's been you. You're not comfortable repeating what hurt you. You're not comfortable pretending things are okay. You're not comfortable living numb. And that discomfort is not a curse. It is evidence. Evidence that God is awakening you. Because when God is about to shift a bloodline, He doesn't always start with a loud miracle. Sometimes He starts with a quiet person who refuses to stay asleep. And in the next chapter, beloved child of God, we're going to talk about why the early season of your calling can feel like isolation, and why that loneliness is often preparation in disguise. Chapter 2. The loneliness isn't rejection, it's preparation. Beloved child of God, let's be honest. The hardest part of being chosen in your family isn't the calling itself. It's the feeling that nobody understands what's happening inside you. You can be surrounded by relatives, yet feel emotionally alone. You can be present at gatherings, yet feel like you're watching life through a window. Because while they talk about surface things, you're carrying deep things. While they distract themselves, you're confronting yourself. While they keep repeating patterns, you're asking God to break them. And sometimes you've wondered, why does it feel like God separated me? Beloved child of God, separation is not always punishment. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's preparation. Because if God kept you fully connected to everything that was familiar, you might never discover who you are beyond the family's expectations. Some families don't know how to love what they can't control. Some environments don't celebrate growth. They fear it. Because when you change, you silently expose what others refuse to face. And they may not say it out loud, but your transformation challenges the unspoken family culture. Your boundaries challenge the normal dysfunction. Your peace challenges the emotional chaos. Your healing challenges the denial. So what happens? Sometimes you become the odd one. Sometimes you become the too sensitive one. Sometimes you become the one they say thinks they're better. But beloved child of God, your sensitivity is not arrogance. Your growth is not disrespect. Your boundaries are not rebellion. They are your spirit maturing. And this is where psychological truth meets spiritual destiny. When you are healing, you can no longer tolerate what you used to normalize. When you are awakening, you can no longer laugh at what is breaking you. When you are transforming, you can no longer fit into spaces designed for your old self. That's why it feels lonely. Because you're outgrowing a version of life that your family still calls normal. But hear me clearly, beloved child of God. God does not isolate you to harm you. He separates you to strengthen you, so you can learn to hear His voice without the noise. So you can learn to trust His leading without needing constant approval. So you can learn to become stable, even when others are unstable. Because your calling requires inner strength. It requires emotional maturity. It requires spiritual depth. And often, the only way to build that is through seasons where you have to learn, I can stand without being understood. I can grow without being clapped for. I can obey God even if my own family doesn't recognize what God is doing in me. And yes, the loneliness hurts. But the loneliness is also revealing something powerful. You are becoming anchored in God, not in people. And that anchor is going to matter because in the next chapter, we're going to uncover the real reason the resistance has been so intense, why your life has felt like a battlefield at times, because you weren't just called to survive, You were called to break cycles. Chapter 3. You were chosen to break cycles. Beloved child of God, there are battles you fought that weren't only about you, they were bigger than you, older than you. They were cycles, generational patterns, unhealed wounds that kept reproducing through behavior, silence, and pain. And the reason it has felt so heavy at times, like you've been fighting something invisible, is because you have been confronting spiritual and emotional inheritance. Things that were passed down not just through DNA, but through habits, through coping, through what was never talked about, through what was never healed. Some families pass down anger like it's normal. Some pass down emotional distance, where love is present, but vulnerability is forbidden. Some pass down addiction, secrecy, manipulation, or control. Some pass down fear of failure, fear of success, fear of intimacy, fear of being seen. Some pass down a poverty mindset, where people don't just struggle financially, they struggle mentally, believing they can never rise. And beloved child of God, you might be the first person in your family line who said, "No more," not with disrespect, not with hatred, but with holy resolve. And that is why the pressure increased when you started growing. Because cycles don't break quietly. They resist, they pull, they tempt you to return. They whisper, "Why are you trying so hard? Why can't you just be like everyone else? Why can't you keep the peace by staying the same?" But there is a different kind of peace, beloved child of God. There is the peace of pretending, and there is the peace of healing. The peace of pretending keeps the family comfortable. The peace of healing sets the family free, even if they don't understand it yet. And this is where prophetic encouragement becomes personal. The resistance you feel is not proof you are doing something wrong. It is often proof you are confronting something that has been ruling for a long time. When you stop tolerating emotional abuse, you challenge a cycle. When you start speaking truth, you challenge a cycle. When you choose purity, sobriety, discipline, and self-control, you challenge a cycle. When you choose therapy, prayer, boundaries, and emotional regulation, you challenge a cycle. And that's why you've been tested in areas that feel repetitive. Because cycles repeat until they are broken. But I need you to hear this, beloved child of God. God will not call you to break something without giving you the strength to endure the process. He will not awaken you without also equipping you. And what feels like pressure right now is also proof that something is shifting. Because cycles don't fight people who aren't a threat. Cycles only fight the ones who carry deliverance. And in the next chapter, you're going to understand why your sensitivity and your different spirit is actually one of your greatest spiritual signs, not a flaw. Chapter 4. Your different spirit is the mark of assignment. Beloved child of God, you've been called too sensitive. But what they didn't realize is that sensitivity is often discernment in an unhealed environment. You notice what others dismiss. You feel what others suppress. You sense what others ignore. And you may have spent years trying to toughen yourself up, trying not to cry, trying not to care, trying not to feel. But God didn't design you to be numb. He designed you to be aware, because the one God chooses in a family often becomes the emotional and spiritual thermometer. You can walk into a room and feel the tension. You can hear someone laugh and still sense the pain behind it. You can see patterns before others admit they exist. And that kind of awareness can feel like a burden, but it's also a gift. Because you can't heal what you can't feel. You can't transform what you refuse to face. Beloved child of God, this is why you've been restless in certain spaces. Your spirit rejects what your flesh used to tolerate. Your soul is craving truth, safety, and wholeness. And that craving is not you being dramatic. It's God calling you higher. The Bible calls it being set apart. Not set apart to judge your family. Set apart to become the proof that transformation is possible. And this is where psychological transformation becomes spiritual revelation. When you're awakening, you start wanting peace more than approval. You start wanting clarity more than chaos. You start wanting healing more than control. You start wanting God more than image. And the moment that shift happens inside you, you begin to live differently. You speak differently. You respond differently. You stop fighting to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop begging for love from places that only know how to give pain. You start choosing environments that match the future God is building in you. And yes, your family may not recognize this version of you, because they knew the version of you that tolerated everything, the version of you that kept the peace by shrinking, the version of you that stayed quiet, stayed small, stayed agreeable. But beloved child of God, you are not called to disappear. You are called to become whole. And wholeness can feel like rebellion in a family addicted to dysfunction. Your different spirit is not rebellion. It is renewal. It is God breathing into you a new way of thinking, living, loving, and believing. And here's the revelation. The more you awaken, the more you will be tested by misunderstanding, not because you're wrong, but because growth forces people to adjust, and not everyone wants to adjust. Which brings us to the next chapter, beloved child of God. Because sometimes the greatest pain is not the calling. It's being misunderstood by the very people you love. Chapter 5. The pain of being misunderstood by family. Beloved child of God. This part is tender, because it hurts when strangers support you faster than relatives. It hurts when people who share your blood can't recognize your heart. It hurts when you finally start healing and they call it being distant. It hurts when you finally set boundaries and they call it being selfish. It hurts when you stop participating in dysfunction and they call it thinking you're better. But hear me. Sometimes family can only love you at the level of their healing. Not because they are evil, not because they are hopeless, but because unhealed people often interpret growth as rejection. They don't know how to say, I'm proud of you. They don't know how to say, I see you. They don't know how to say, I'm sorry. So instead, they criticize what they can't understand. They mock what they secretly fear. They minimize what convicts them. And beloved child of God, this is where you need wisdom. Your calling is not to convince everyone. Your calling is to remain obedient. You are not responsible for how everyone receives your growth. You are responsible for staying aligned with what God is doing in you. Because some of your family may not celebrate you until they see the fruit. They may not understand your boundaries until they realize you're not coming back to chaos. They may not respect your peace until they see you are serious about protecting it. And I need you to hear this clearly. You can honor your family without returning to what God delivered you from. Honor is not the same as surrender. Love is not the same as tolerance. Forgiveness is not the same as access. Beloved child of God, there is a version of love that keeps you bleeding, and there's a version of love that keeps you free. And sometimes God teaches you to love people from a distance, not because you hate them, but because you are no longer willing to lose yourself to keep them comfortable. And this is one of the hardest truths. You may be the first one in your family who learns how to love with boundaries, how to forgive without returning, how to care without carrying, how to show compassion without sacrificing your mental health. That is maturity. That is healing. That is spiritual evolution. And the enemy wants you to feel guilty for changing. But God is saying, I am the one who is changing you. So don't let guilt pull you back into cycles. Don't let misunderstanding make you doubt your calling. Because the next chapter is going to confirm something powerful. God always confirms the chosen one, not just with feelings, but with fruit. And sometimes He confirms you through unexpected people, through strangers He sends to support what your family refuses to understand. Chapter 6. God will confirm you with fruit, favor, and unexpected support. Beloved child of God, God never calls you and then leaves you without confirmation. He will confirm you. Sometimes quietly, sometimes suddenly, but always clearly, if you have the eyes to see it. One of the most emotional experiences is realizing that God will send help from places you didn't expect. He will send encouragement through someone who isn't even connected to your family. He will send guidance through a mentor. He will send confirmation through a message, a sermon, a moment, a divine coincidence that is too precise to be random. And you'll sit there thinking, how did they know? How did this find me at the exact moment I needed it? Beloved child of God, because God is showing you you're not alone. The reason your family may not fully validate your calling is because God is teaching you not to build your identity on family approval. He's teaching you to build it on divine truth. And here are some signs God is confirming you as the chosen one in your family line. You feel conviction when you start slipping back into old patterns. Not condemnation, conviction. A loving, firm inner voice that says, that's not you anymore. You feel spiritual hunger increasing. You want God more than you want distraction. You're becoming more aware of what triggers you, and instead of ignoring it, you're working on it. You're drawn to healing. You're drawn to growth. You're drawn to becoming emotionally whole. And even when you feel tired, you keep getting back up. That resilience is confirmation. And beloved child of God, don't miss this. The enemy doesn't fight what doesn't matter. The warfare around your mind, the resistance around your healing, the way you've had to fight for peace, it's not because you're weak. It's because your breakthrough has consequences. Your healing will bless people you haven't even met yet. Your transformation will change the atmosphere your children grow up in. Your obedience will rewrite what's possible in your family line. And that is why God is taking this seriously. He is confirming you with fruit. Because fruit is louder than opinions. People can doubt your words, but they can't deny your change. They can criticize your journey, but they can't argue with your peace. They can misunderstand your boundaries, but they can't stop the favor on your life. And one day, maybe sooner than you think, some of the same people who questioned you will come to you for wisdom. Not because you proved them wrong, but because God proved you right. And that leads perfectly into next chapter, beloved child of God. Because now that you know why you were chosen, the question becomes, what do you do next? What are the next faithful steps of the one God chose to shift the family? Chapter 7. What to do now? The next faithful steps of the chosen one. Beloved child of God, your calling is not only spiritual, it's practical. It shows up in the small daily decisions, the quiet disciplines, the private prayers, the boundaries nobody applauds, the forgiveness that costs you pride, the healing work that makes you face yourself. So what do you do now? First, stay close to God daily, not because you're trying to be religious, but because intimacy is where you receive strength. Some days it will be a long prayer. Some days it will be a whisper. Some days it will be one scripture that holds you together. But keep returning, because the chosen one can't afford spiritual dryness. Your family might have taught you how to survive, but God is teaching you how to be sustained. Second, stop carrying what God didn't assign you to carry. Beloved child of God, you are not the savior of your family. Jesus is. You are not responsible for fixing everyone. You are responsible for obeying God. There's a difference between intercession and emotional burden. Intercession is prayer with peace. Burden is stress with guilt. God didn't call you to drown trying to rescue people who refuse to swim. He called you to be faithful. Third, forgive, but don't return to what broke you. Forgiveness is freedom, but returning to the same cycle is not mercy. It's self-abandonment. You can forgive someone and still require change. You can love someone and still keep your boundaries. You can honor your family and still protect your mind. Beloved child of God, your peace is part of your purpose. Fourth, build new patterns that become your new legacy. Speak differently, respond differently, handle conflict differently, handle money differently, handle relationships differently, handle disappointment differently. Because the greatest generational shift isn't always a dramatic moment. Sometimes it's simply this: you refuse to pass down what was passed to you. You refuse to normalize what hurt you. You refuse to make pain your personality. You refuse to keep living in survival mode. And lastly, remember this: you are not behind. You are on time. Your awakening is not late. Your healing is not pointless. Your tears were not wasted. God has been shaping you, and what you are becoming is going to bless your family, even if they don't recognize it today. Because the chosen one doesn't always get celebrated in the beginning, but the chosen one becomes undeniable in the end. And now, beloved child of God, we're coming to the closing revelation. Because if you've made it this far, it's not an accident. This message found you because something is already moving in your life. Beloved child of God, breathe for a moment, because I need you to receive this, not just hear it. You are not too different. You are not too sensitive. You are not too much. You are chosen. And being chosen in your family doesn't always look like a spotlight. Sometimes it looks like quiet strength. Sometimes it looks like tears you cried alone. Sometimes it looks like breaking habits nobody else wanted to address. Sometimes it looks like being the first one to seek God seriously, the first one to seek healing, the first one to say, "This ends with me." And I want to speak this over you clearly. God is making you a turning point. God is making you a cycle breaker. God is making you a bridge builder. God is making you a living testimony. And yes, some seasons have felt lonely, but you are not forgotten. Heaven has been watching the private battles you fought, the times you chose peace instead of pride, the times you chose growth instead of comfort, the times you kept praying when you didn't see results. Beloved child of God, something significant is happening in your life, not because you feel it every day, but because God is shaping you in ways that will soon become visible. And I believe this with all my heart. The same God who chose you will sustain you. The same God who awakened you will guide you. The same God who separated you will send destiny connections. The same God who called you will confirm you. So don't shrink, don't go back, don't silence your healing to make others comfortable. You are not becoming distant, you are becoming free. You are not becoming cold, you are becoming whole. You are not losing your family, you are breaking what was hurting the family. Beloved child of God, you are the answer to a prayer someone in your bloodline couldn't even find the words to pray, and now you will live it. Amen.